Welcome YouTube family. Quick video on tonight's big fight, Canelo-Golovkin 3. We are several years in the making for this hopefully resounding conclusion to the rivalry tonight. But before we get there, I want to give you 3 quick points to look out for in tonight's contest. The first thing I want you to pay attention to would be who dictates the pace of the fight. Now, if you look at the first fight, and we're going to throw out Adelaide Bird's horrible scorecard of 118, 110 for Canelo, but we'll look at the other 2 cards. After 4 rounds, the fight was even, 2 rounds apiece. And then after 6 rounds, Golovkin was up 4-2 on the scorecards. So it is very, very important to me that he comes out and wins the majority of those early rounds, pretty much the majority of the first half of the fight. You even look in the rematch, it was flipped. It was Canelo that was up 4-2 on, I believe, all 3 scorecards. And with Golovkin's age being 40 years old, it's going to be very important that he puts Canelo on his heels early and doesn't let Canelo get into a rhythm, because I believe the second half of the fight is going to be a dogfight and it's going to be very hard to score. So if Golovkin has a little bit of a cushion in those early rounds, that'll be beneficial to him going down the stretch of what is probably going to be another fight that's close on the scorecards. Second thing to keep in mind will be the weight. We're at 168. Now, we know Canelo's been dominant at this weight. He unified the belts. He's coming in as the undisputed champion at 168. However, he is older. He is over 30. He started his professional career at 15. So he has a lot more wear and tear on him than your average 32, 33-year-old fighter. And even though he hasn't had much in-ring punishment, just the wear and tear of all those rounds and making weight and all that training, he's had knee issues before. So the thing to keep in mind with Canelo, because his stamina has always been a question, how is his body going to react coming back down to 168? He's did a lot of weight jumping before and he's been fine, but at some point that comes back to bite you. So it's going to be very important to see who has the stamina overall in this fight and how Canelo is going to be reacting to punches coming back down to 168. On the other hand, we're going to have to see how Golovkin reacts to coming in at a new weight. We're all assuming he's going to be fresher, not having to make the strain of making 160, but we've never seen him take a punch from a legit 168 pounder. Canelo is the big guy. We've seen that he can go as high as 175 and still be effective depending on the opponent. So now we're going to see how his punches are going to affect Golovkin. I would assume that Golovkin is going to be a little bit stronger at this weight, but that is something to keep in mind when you're watching this fight. And finally, the most important point, who is going to dictate the narrative? Now, the question is, what is going to be the narrative and the story? Now, in the first fight, the narrative was Golovkin was coming forward. And we know in Vegas, if you're coming forward and being aggressive, if the round is tight, more than likely the judges are going to give it to the guy coming forward. Now, that was turned on his head with Golovkin, because even though that was happening and he was the guy coming forward, he did kind of get jobbed on the scorecards. But when we see in the rematch, the guy that was coming forward got the benefit of the doubt in a lot of those close rounds, and that was Canelo, especially in the 12th round, which is a round that I thought Golovkin won. The majority of the guys in Vegas gave it to Canelo because for the majority of that round, he was the guy coming forward. So and also keep in mind with that rematch, a lot of guys were saying, as far as who won the fight, they were saying Canelo won it simply because he did what Golovkin told him he wanted, which was the Mexican style and coming forward. So when Golovkin got that fight, he wasn't able to stay in the trenches and he decided to box. So people use that as a negative against Golovkin, which you shouldn't do on the scorecards, but that's what they did because the narrative of this fight was that Golovkin was the bigger guy, and here he was retreating against a smaller guy that was trying to walk him down. So is the narrative going to be in this fight the old man being able to go into his gas tank and fight tougher than what we expected? If that happens and we see the crowd rallying behind the older guy in Golovkin, that can sway the judges his way. If we see Canelo showing his brilliance, his normal combination punching, and walking or attempting to walk down Golovkin like he did in the rematch, I can see the judges, of course, going his way. So it really is going to depend on who is controlling that narrative in the ring. Who is the one that's coming forward? Who is the one that's constantly moving his hands and being aggressive? And who's going to be able to maintain that? Because it's going to be a very, very grueling fight. So with all those factors, who am I going to pick? I think after what we've seen from 24 rounds, the safe pick has to be Canelo. He's the younger fighter. He has the faster hands. And with his style, because he's the flashier puncher, I feel that that's always going to constantly sway the judges in the close round. I think for Golovkin to win, he's going to have to get a lot of cooperation from Canelo, meaning he's going to have to make Canelo get reckless. And I'm not sure at 40 he's going to be able to do that because that essentially means he's going to have to put the pressure on and be willing to engage in the firefight and risk getting seriously hurt himself. He's going to have to take a lot of punches like he did in the rematch, and be willing to engage Canelo on that level. And I'm just not convinced that at 40 years old he can do that. He's looked very strong against Murata. He systematically broke him down. He's looked pretty much like that in the majority of his fights since the second fight. But I do think he's lost something with that second fight because that fight was a grueling fight for a fighter of his age. And I feel like something has to give at 40. And I'm just not convinced that he can maintain the type of aggression that's needed to wear Canelo down over 12 rounds enough to get a decision. I think it's going to be a spirited effort. I think he's going to be the man that's going to be cheered afterward because of the effort that he puts forward. And I feel that because he really wants that loss back and revenge, he's not going to go down. So I really don't see him getting knocked out like some people claim. But I do think Canelo is going to emerge with another tight win, probably a majority decision or split decision win. So let me know what you guys think. We're only a couple hours away. Uh, if Canelo wins, what does that do to his legacy, if anything? And if Golovkin wins and becomes the unified or undisputed champion at 168, what does that do for his legacy? And do you think he should retire on that note should he pull off the upset win? Looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say, and I'll see you tonight with another short recap after the fight.